the coldest night of the year. My furnace stopped working, and a red shut-off tag was hanging from my meter. I thought I was the only target, until the entire neighborhood went dark. The cold that night didn't just bite. It felt personal. The thermometer outside my kitchen window read 15 degrees Celsius, and the wind howled like it was trying to claw its way inside. Every sound carried in that kind of cold. So when someone knocked on my front door, sharp and deliberate, it echoed through the house like a warning. I opened it to find Karen, the HOA president, wrapped in a heavy fur-lined coat, holding a clipboard, like a badge of authority. She didn't smile. She didn't greet me. She simply pointed to the small metal vent on the side of my house and said, "That's not approved." I stared at her, confused. The vent was part of my new high-efficiency furnace, city-permitted, inspected, installed by a licensed contractor. I explained all of that calmly, expecting logic to win. She didn't even glance at the paperwork I offered. "You've altered the exterior without board authorization," she said. "You have 24 hours to correct it." Correct what? A legal installation? The wind cut between us, but her expression was colder. I closed the door, thinking it was just another petty HOA warning, the kind you roll your eyes at and move on from. At 11:47 p.m., my furnace shut off. At first, I thought it was a power fluctuation, but when I checked the meter outside, there was a bright red tag hanging from it. Gas service suspended, and taped to my door was a notice. Reported safety hazard, under investigation. Karen's name was listed as the complainant at 15 degrees Celsius. And that's when I realized this wasn't a warning. It was a move. By sunrise, the house no longer felt like home. It felt abandoned. The air inside was so cold, I could see my breath drifting through the hallway. I turned on every faucet to keep the pipes from freezing, but the water pressure was already weakening. The furnace thermostat blinked uselessly, mocking me with a temperature that kept dropping. My elderly dog refused to leave his blanket. Even the hardwood floors felt dangerous to walk on. I layered sweaters, gloves, even a beanie inside my own living room. This wasn't just uncomfortable, it was unsafe. By mid-morning, I had no choice. I packed a bag, gathered my family, and booked the nearest hotel with available rooms. The roads were sheets of ice, and as I drove away, I kept glancing back. At my house, worried about what the cold would destroy before I returned. That's when my phone buzzed, an email from the HOA. The subject line read, "Compliance Reminder." It stated that due to my unauthorized exterior modification, the board had notified the gas utility of a potential safety issue. Service would remain suspended until the HOA confirmed the violation was corrected. There was no mention of an inspection. No evidence of a hazard, just authority. At the bottom of the email, Karen added a final line. "This could have been avoided if you followed the rules." That's when it hit me. She wasn't concerned about safety. She was testing power. But what she didn't know, and what made me stop feeling like a victim, was that I had already started making calls, and someone much bigger than the HOA was about to get involved. I didn't wait for the HOA's approval. The moment I checked into the hotel, I called the city's building and safety department myself. I requested an emergency inspection and forwarded every permit, invoice, and compliance certificate I had. If this was about safety, I wanted the truth documented, officially. The inspector arrived the next morning, bundled in a city-issued jacket, clipboard in hand. I met him outside my freezing house, the red gas shut-off tag still flapping in the wind like a warning sign. He examined the vent carefully, measured clearances, checked the serial number on the furnace, and compared it against the permit records. He didn't say much at first. Then he stepped back and said, "This installation is fully compliant." I felt the tension drain from my shoulders until he added, "But that's not the interesting part." He asked to see the HOA complaint. I handed him the notice Karen had attached to the gas utility report. His eyebrows lifted slightly as he read it. "She reported an active gas leak and immediate life safety threat," he said. I stared at him. A gas leak? That was never mentioned to me. The inspector made a call right there in my driveway. 10 minutes. Later, he turned back toward me, his expression sharper now. Filing a false emergency report to force a utility shutoff is serious, he said. Very serious. But before leaving, he requested something unexpected. Records of recent HOA-approved furnace upgrades in the neighborhood. And the look on his face told me this wasn't going to stop with my house. I didn't understand why the inspector cared about other homes until he started knocking on doors 2 streets over. Word travels fast in a neighborhood like ours, and within hours whispers were spreading about city investigations and code violations. That's when I learned about the HOA's recent community efficiency upgrade. They had pressured dozens of homeowners into replacing older furnaces with a preferred contractor, someone the board personally recommended. At first, it sounded harmless: modern systems, energy savings, group discounts. But when the inspector reviewed the installation records, his tone shifted. Many of the permits were missing. Some hadn't been filed at all. Vent placements were nearly identical to mine, except they had been installed without proper clearance from gas regulators. By late afternoon, 2 utility trucks rolled into the neighborhood. I watched from across the street as technicians checked pressure lines, meters, and exterior vents. The mood wasn't routine anymore. It was tense. One technician spoke quietly to the inspector, then shook his head. That evening, official notices were taped to doors, not just mine. Gas service temporarily suspended pending compliance review. 42. Homes. The same red tag that had hung from my meter now fluttered across nearly the entire block. Families stepped outside in confusion, staring at each other in disbelief. Karen's carefully controlled narrative was unraveling in real time, and when she finally stormed out of her house demanding answers, the inspector calmly told her the audit had been triggered by a false emergency report. Silence spread down the street. Her move against me hadn't just backfired. It had exposed something much bigger. The emergency HOA meeting was scheduled for the very next night in the clubhouse, but there was nothing orderly about it. By the time I walked in, the room was already packed. Neighbors who had barely spoken to each other before were now huddled together, comparing red shutoff tags like proof of a shared disaster. The air felt heavier than the cold outside. Karen sat at the front table with the rest of the board, papers stacked neatly in front of her, trying to look composed. But her voice wavered when she opened the meeting. She called it an unexpected municipal overreach. She blamed miscommunication. She insisted the board had acted in everyone's best interest. Then someone stood up, a father of 3 whose pipes had burst that morning. He held up the city notice and read it out loud. Investigation initiated due to a false emergency hazard. Report. He looked straight at Karen. Who filed it? The room went silent. All eyes turned to her. She tried to deflect, saying the board had collectively agreed. But the inspector, who had quietly entered the back of the room, stepped forward. He clarified that the complaint had been filed under one name, hers. Murmurs turned into outrage. Neighbors demanded accountability. Some demanded reimbursement for damages. Others threatened legal action. Within a week, Karen resigned for personal reasons. The board announced a special assessment to cover fines and repairs, and my gas? Restored immediately, along with a written statement clearing my name. Karen had tried to freeze me out to prove control. Instead, she thawed the entire neighborhood's trust in her, permanently. If you enjoy real HOA drama, shocking twists, and stories where karma hits hard, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.